Hey, I'm just waiting for people to join. We'll give them a few minutes. I'm gonna click around on the screen a little bit, but I'm gonna wait for more people to join, and then we'll dive in. So if people write in the chat, how come there's no audio? It's because I'm sitting tight for a few minutes while more people join. A lot of people in the private group still have to come in and join. They're more important. I opened it up publicly because I haven't streamed lately, and I took a few days off with Jewish holidays and stuff. So I just figured I would do a quick stream, maybe even do it publicly, but I went away for everybody in a Flux Trading group, in my private group, because they're obviously my priority. So let's give them a few minutes to join, and then we'll dive in. We'll look at the majors, check out Bitcoin. I'll show you my most recent models, what I'm thinking on the Bitcoin side, and the overall market side. And then we can look at some altcoins and potentially find some good short-term trades. Just to give you an example, like MPSX, did I do that on here? Yeah, I did. Okay. I don't know if that was on this one. This is an entry I came up with earlier for a mid to long-term hold. This wasn't a short-term trade. Although I probably could have made it a precision trade because my 55 each and my dynamic support right here has been such a killer support. If it does dip, the top of the cloud will probably hold it, but it's looking really bullish here. So, but we'll look for some short-term trades, hopefully some precision entries. That would be really nice. And see what we can come up with. We'll go over Bitcoin too, like I said. So let's give it a few minutes, wait for some people to join, and then we'll dive in. So if you see me clicking around, looking at charts, the audio is not broken. I'm just not fully streaming it. I'm waiting for more people to come in. All right. One more second, and then we'll get started. Uh, some interesting stuff to go over. All right, I'll be right back, guys. Give me 1 minute. I got some of the guys from the group still haven't come into the stream. Give it probably just a couple minutes longer, but gonna be some good stuff to go over actually because let me check something with the mic. Test. Damn it. Test. Test. Alright, I think that's better. If you guys think the audio is better or worse when I change the settings around, let me know. But with my new mic, it's definitely a lot better than it was. That's for sure. But if it sounds too loud or not loud enough, I could tweak it. There's not that many people on, but I guess we can get started. What douchebag gave me a thumbs down on the live stream? Seriously, who does that? Join a live stream and instantly do a thumbs down. It's such a douchey move. I fucking hate people, man. You guys, like, just so annoying. Not that it really matters. Like, who cares? It's a thumbs down on a live stream. Like, who gives a shit, right? But it's just so incredibly just rude. Just like, I think people forget we're people, right? Like, somebody who does live streams or does crypto stuff, I'm just a guy. And like the people who are in my trading group or the people who follow me and don't pay for the group, but people who just follow me for my free content, they're just people. People you follow on Twitter, they're just people. Especially me when I had tens of thousands of followers. Like I wasn't like, oh, I'm an influencer. It's whatever. It was a good tool to get out the word and communicate with the community. But like, we're all just dudes and chicks, right? We're all just like people. Like if we met on the street, we could probably be friends. Like we could probably go drinking together. So for people to just like be so nasty all the time, where like they would do something out of spite, like just randomly put a thumbs down on someone's video. As stupid and insignificant as that is, it just goes to show you how douchey everybody is. There's so many fucking douchebags in this world, and it's really annoying. It's getting worse by the year too. Every year of my life, people have been sucking more and more, and people really suck nowadays. All right. So, I invited everybody, like even public, to this stream. Normally my streams are only for the premium members of my group, Flux Trading Group. It's like my private group. Where, hey, if you want to join, if you're not in now, I'd be very happy. Without having the Twitter reach anymore, since Twitter banned me, it's really hard to get people to come into the group. But usually my streams are only for them, but I wanted to do a public one. Plus, I haven't done any streams really for like a week now, and I had the Jewish holidays and my family was in town. So I thought it would be a good opportunity just to do a public stream. We can go over the majors, go over some potential trades. That's what I wanted to do. So I was looking at the charts, and I'm looking for some potential short-term trades, especially using my Ichima model, see if I can find some really good precision short-term trades. I'm always looking for that because I'm mostly a short-term trader, but I also do a lot of long-term work, especially now in a bull market. Long-term work is paramount. The longer we chop and range in this region, though, the closer we're getting to that point where you have to start considering the bull run is losing steam. I'm not saying that's there yet. I still think, especially with the alts, that there's a lot of explosive movement coming. We might get a pretty decent correction before that happens, though. So, I was able, for those who don't know, I predicted this bull run. I said we're going to have a 5 to 10 day bull run. And that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We kind of moved sideways. 8. It's been 8 days of this bull run now, where the alt's been running. BTC has been stable at times, been aggressively bullish at times. I was hoping to get to all-time highs, and we sort of stalled. You can see we had these daily candles. We're running up really aggressively. And then we stalled and moved sideways for a bit. So there are a few ways it can play out. When I use my Stoke model, it's really an amazing tool when the Stoke is locked in. For those who don't know, you get waves up and down. You get these Stoke cycles where it goes up and down and up and down. And when that's locked in, look at this, right? Like the top of the Stoke right here was the top right there. And then the Stoke corrected down to the bottom. Exactly at the bottom, once the Stoke started to turn up, we continued upward on a bullish move, and then this swing down and another move up. It's perfectly mirrored what the Stoke oscillator is doing. And then this correction on the way down, perfectly mirrored with this correction here. And then this pump right here, perfectly mirrored this pump here. So on the daily model, the Stoke has been really locked in. But what happens is when you get hyper bullish, especially when you're in the type of bullish market we've been in, you'll get to this point where you get to the top and it starts to turn down and you're like, oh, we're going to correct, right? And you might think you're going to correct, and then the Stoke stays elevated in that overbought range and the price just keeps running up and you're parabolic. That can always happen. So I'm not necessarily saying we're definitely going to correct here. That doesn't happen on the bottom. So you'll notice on the Stoke, there are all these periods where we got into these bull runs, like here, big parabolic bull run, and the Stoke stayed up in this overbought range. Then it came down, and then it went up again, and then the same thing occurred. Now, when it dips down to the bottom like that, it usually doesn't stay low. So when it gets down to the bottom and that Stoke starts to turn up, there's a very, very high probability you're going to start a bull run, right? So in this case, for instance, I was able to predict this bull run flawlessly because of that. Now that we're all the way up at the top, like over here, the last one, we got to the top over here, it starts to turn down, and then we get another 4 or 5 days of this bullish activity before we correct. It's much harder to predict up top. So I can't say when it's going to happen, but given how high we are on the Stoke with that overbought range, we are definitely going to get a pretty decent size correction relatively soon. I can't say exactly when with precision like I could on the bottom. On the bottom, I was able to predict this bull run with incredible precision, especially the guys in my private group were more than aware of that. I even shared some public videos talking about that. So we're definitely, based on that model, we're definitely going to correct. I just don't know when. We could stay bullish, which is why I'm thinking I'm probably not going to do much trading on the majors. I might do a little bit. My last my last Ethereum trade, for instance, was really great. I got in pretty much right at the bottom when I predicted the bullish reversal. And at this point, was that locked? That's why. At this point, all the way at the top, I'm at 25% on Ethereum. So we're getting close to the prior top. So this really would be an opportune time to get the correction where you're getting to this double top and then you're going to catch a rejection, right? So there's a pretty decently high probability this is going to be the point where we come back down. And usually that makes me a little standoffish. So what I may do is I might avoid getting into the majors until we get more information about how this is going to play out, because we're getting pretty close to a correction. And I might just focus on the shorter term stuff. And I might, instead of looking at the daily, it might be better to look at the 4-hour chart. And I look at some of the alts, because some of the alts might have really bullish, potentially bullish models on the 4-hour model, even though the daily looks like it's particularly bearish or getting close to being bearish. However, you know, sometimes if you guys have seen me get into trades that I shared publicly, sometimes like the entire market will be correcting and it's going to be really bullish. And then all of a sudden it corrects and everything dumps. But there are certain assets that go up. There are a couple pairings here and there, a couple coins that still manage to go super green even when everything else is correcting. The best way to find those is to look at a model like this, where you see on the daily, you have Bitcoin, you have Ethereum, the majors are all really high and overextended and looking really, really close to turning bearish, right? And then everything could be bearish and turning down. When you could find something that's inverted, and you could find something like RVN, for instance, on the daily. RVN is doing the complete opposite. RVN is actually really low on the Stoke because we didn't get that bull run lately. It's sort of trading inverted. It's doing the opposite of what Bitcoin and Ethereum are doing, right? So in this case, this might be a really good opportunity to get into a midterm hold on RVN. There's a really good chance that RVN might actually do really well, even if the rest of the market is correcting. So RVN is something you really, really, really want to watch. One of the things that I really wanted to watch for a short-term move, not based on the daily, because based on the daily it looks like she's correcting exactly when the daily model said she would, but shorter term, if I look at the 4-hour time frame, a lot of these are looking really bullish. The only issue is when you're starting a downtrend, if that's indeed what's happening, if the model's correct and we're starting a downtrend, you might not get as big of a bounce as you would like. So on OGN, for instance, we might go up and then get rejected after just 8 to 10% run. So it might be better as a shorter term or a midterm thing, not necessarily as like a long-term hold. But that's what you want to look for. So we're going to take a look at a few of these. Let's run through my general watch list here, and I want to see, again, look at Bitcoin, look at Ethereum. The Stoke is really high, the RSI is really high. They're both overbought. So if we can find assets that are doing the opposite, where instead of looking overbought and and starting to turn down, if we can find assets that actually have a much lower Stoke and a much lower RSI that haven't had that bull run. When we got this bull run recently and a lot of the alts skyrocketed, if we can find the stuff that didn't get that upward movement, we'll be able to catch those assets that do well, even if everything else corrects. And if we continue upward on the majors, if we get one of these parabolic runs where even though the Stoke and the RSI are really high, we keep continuing to run up, if that were to happen, then everything's going to go up regardless. You just want to find the ones that are going to perform the best, right? Now, at times like this, there are a few ways it can play out. Now, when you get really high and you're overbought on the Stoke and the RSI is really high, usually that indicates you're going to get a correction, but if some news comes out, that could facilitate a really big move. I'm pretty sure that big daily candle might have been when Elon said that Tesla was going to take Bitcoin. I'm not positive. That might have been that one, though. I have to go back and check when that happened. But news, fundamentals, news, things like that can cause these big moves. It can cause us to go parabolic, even when the technicals are suggesting we may be bearish. And what do I call that? You've heard me say it before. That's when you're extra technical or post-technical. In a post-technical market or an extra technical market, you can sort of invalidate and ignore a lot of those technical indicators that you usually rely on to identify and predict trends, because those other variables are so strong that they're going to override whatever the technicals are telling you. The technicals are telling me there's a very high probability that with the Stoke and the RSI this high and it's starting to turn south, that we're going to dump. But then all it takes is one big news story that PayPal is going to accept Bitcoin and the price can skyrocket and start a parabolic run, regardless of what the technicals show us, right? So you don't want to focus only on the technicals. That's why I have my FATAPAMP model, FATAPAMP, for those who don't know. FATAPAMP, and that stands for Fundamental Analysis, Technical Analysis, People, and Market Psychology. Those are 4 different data sets that I rely on, whether it's individual people, like tracking exactly what behaviors Elon Musk is doing. So you want to watch like Roger Ver and Elon Musk and Charlie Lee and CZ, and you want to focus these individual players with influence, and those individual people can give you input that other people may not consider, and you might be able to say, based on these people's behaviors or how they usually tweet or how they usually influence the markets, you can expect certain things to happen. Market psychology is on a larger scale. Overall, how are people, what are they saying? How are people acting? Are people overly bullish or bearish? What is the overall trend in sentiment that you're seeing in the community? And then obviously there's fundamentals and technicals, and everybody knows what those are. So don't rely only on technicals. And even right now, the technicals are telling me that there's a really good chance we're going to correct pretty hard. There's an equally good chance we're going to push up to all-time highs, because all it's going to take is one news story. Now, there have been rumblings about the new administration wanting to do something or try to control Bitcoin in some way, not necessarily make it illegal, although the publications and the media who don't know a lot about Bitcoin and crypto say that they want to make it illegal. They don't really know that there's really no way to do that, and it's sort of beyond their control because it's a decentralized platform, as is most of crypto. But that's something that could obviously spook the market. Not because it would scare us, because we know that they really can't do anything, but it would spook the retail market. And we rely on the retail market. We need the retail market to bring new money into the game, to keep this market active and to keep volume up and liquidity up. It's very important. So we don't want to spook those investors out. So if I'm looking at Bitcoin outside of that, there are a few other things to look at. This is obviously a strong resistance right here. You can see if I just, one of the keys to identifying support and resistance, before you get to the point where you have the skills to just spot it with the naked eye, move the mouse around and you'll see that cursor and you're like, oh, wait a minute. When I have it right here, I can see it keeps getting rejected right at this level. Well, where's that dotted line go if I look left? That dotted line also suggests there was a lot of resistance here. So right now we're sitting on a pretty strong resistance. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it can usually end up forming an ascending triangle, which is a typically bullish formation. In this case, since we poked above it a few times, we have more of a pennant. And you can see that here. Now the most exciting time for a bull pennant like that, to decide if it's going to be bullish or not, is when you're getting into that apex, and we're getting pretty close to the apex of that pennant, so we might have a decision relatively soon. I would ignore these 2 wicks and actually focus on that. There's more traffic there. So we're coming up, we're going to test that trendline resistance again, and then we'll see what happens. If we push above that trendline resistance, that would be a really strong sign. But looking at the lower time frames will give you more information now, since the daily is starting to look pretty bearish. We have to hope that it's one of those scenarios where, even though it looks bearish, we still run up, just like where we talked about in these other instances where we were super high over here but kept running up, or over here. And again, that can happen with a single news story or some fundamentals or something, right? So since there's a little bit of uncertainty there, BTC is looking really bullish right now, like shorter term, but overall, I can't shake the sensation that we're going to be seeing a big correction soon, because I have to feel that way. Anytime the Stochastic is high, my brain goes there. Then again, I mean, even happened over here. Again, the Stochastic was really high, was overbought, coming down, and then we got like 5 more days of bullish activity pushing up to all-time highs. So I wouldn't say freak out and sell everything right now. I've been considering, I said I might sell some of my longer-term holds, but my midterm trades really, I'm not going to sell them. What I'll probably do is just set a stop loss on them, so if we do dump, I don't lose back all of my profits. I might lose back 10% or 15% of my profits. But obviously with the trades I've made, and the people in the group can verify this, we've had some trades that have done 10, 20, 30x. Those trades, you're not going to lose all your profit no matter what. So you can afford to leave those open. We have that, so that was that support. There's also a horizontal support here, which you can't see on this time frame really. If I drop to the 4 hour, you can see I highlighted all these instances where this level was either support or resistance, and even again right over here it was strong resistance again, and then it became support again. So we have a support here and we have a resistance up here. So we're sort of bouncing back and forth between support and resistance. So it is a little bit choppy, and we are within that range. Once we escape from that range, that'll give us a better idea of what's going to happen. So again, overall, my overall sentiment on BTC is bearish. It has to be based on my model, but outside of the technicals, there are a lot of variables at play. Like I said, with my Fatapant model, it could just be one piece of news comes out that Amazon will start accepting Bitcoin, and within 12 hours, Bitcoin will be worth $75,000 a piece. Right? That's all it takes. So that's why I want to focus on the alts right now. The alts will be a little bit easier to manage, and they should give us some potentially good entries depending on what some of the time frames look. Any questions on BTC so far? And then if there aren't any, we'll dive into the alts. We'll start going through my watch list and look at some of the altcoins. Yeah, I saw that was an Evening Star Prime. Oh, look, whoever gave me the thumbs down removed it. So either they were trolling me just to fuck with me, or I made them feel like an asshole, because that really was rude since I didn't even start the goddamn live stream yet. Or maybe they were just impatient and they were like, oh, this live stream sucks. I'm going to thumbs down it because I wasn't talking, even though I specifically said, hey, I'm going to mute the mic for a bit. It was funny because there's this one guy, he responded to a YouTube video I did. He's like, your quality is shit. I can't even watch this video. And I'm like, maybe you should wait 5 minutes for it to finish uploading, dipshit. And then he replied like 5 minutes later, sorry, this video is incredible. I'm so happy I waited and gave it a second chance. It's like, are people that impatient? It's so ridiculous. What levels do you see after 62K? On the way up? So, if you remember my original long-term analysis, let me find my whole watch list here. I accidentally clicked symbol here, which sorted it alphabetically, and that was like months of work where I had them very well organized. So now I don't know exactly which BTC chart has the info I'm looking for. Is it the Bitfinex one? Let me see. I want to show you guys just a quick reminder of how I predicted this entire bull run so well. Not the most recent one from the last week. I mean this entire bull run. Like, literally, from the bottom to the top. Which BTC chart was it? Let me check one more time. Yeah, where the hell is that? That's really annoying. Alright, I guess I gotta redraw it. Not that it really is that hard. It's just not going to be as precise as it used to be in my old chart. My old chart, which I didn't lose, was much better. Let's use the Gemini one because it's pretty empty. So, it's going to be a relatively rough drawing here. But, so with this original bull run, right, is wave 1, and then wave 2 correction to 3,200, 3K. Call that the wave 2 correction, right? So that was wave 2. So now, for my original wave 3 target, I had about 35K. this was my wave 3 target. We got a little bit above it and then we corrected, but it was really never a full correction. We went parabolic, and this parabolic run, this wave 3, given the fact that we went parabolic, this is sort of what happened back here, because back here, that original wave 3 went all the way up to a 3618 extension. So I think it's very likely we can get up to 75K before we get a larger correction. But that was my overall long-term analysis when I said that we bottomed out at 3,200, and I said we're going to keep going all the way up, and the main next stop was going to be 3,500, and then she blew past that and went full-on parabolic and hasn't stopped since. Eventually she has to, but at this rate, I wouldn't be surprised if she gets all the way to that 3,618 extension. Now, if we're looking at more short-term to identify correction targets on this dip, I think we're going to get a long-term correction. Like I said, once we get up to that 75K range, I'm still all in on that target. I really think so. Now, shorter term for this correction. All right, I got to get to a cleaner chart. How am I going to do this? Let's go back to where we were, actually. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? This Bitrix chart might have actually been the one where I had a bunch of that stuff. So for wave 3, my wave 3 target was 55K. I moved it to the 2618 extension. It used to be at the 1618 extension. So this actually is my older one. Yeah, that is it. It's too hard to really use Elliott wave here because when you're parabolic like that, it's virtually impossible. The same thing occurred back here. It was impossible because you just didn't have the corrections to give yourself those corrective waves, which are important. You need to reset and get those corrective waves before you can start the next mode of wave. So it is really difficult, especially in lower time frames. But my rough wave 3 target was originally supposed to be the 2618 extension, and then I had to say, all right, at this point, if we're breaking past it, we're going to go all the way up to that 75K at the 3618. This one's a little bit different. It shows 72, but it really is more 75 when I draw it in more detail. Hold on one second, guys. Jenny called me. The kids are up there. They woke up and now they're screaming. I'm gonna stay out of the bushes. I don't really want to try to come up with a reliable shorter term wave count. It's just too hard. It's so hard to make it fit. I don't even know how I can. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe that's 5, and we have to get that wave 4, the subwave 4 correction. If that was the case, and I'm not saying it is, please don't hold me to this, just roughly, if this was the last motive wave, and we are at the top of that, there's major support at around 40K. Could we correct all the way to 40K? I'm not going to put much stock in that. It's hard to explain, especially people who are newer to this, because if you weren't around in a bear market and you didn't learn how to trade and conduct technical analysis in a more stable market, we are in such a hyper bullish market now that a lot of those rules just don't apply. So it's really hard to explain why, but I just can't make sense of some of it, and there's really nobody out there that can. Nobody can predict some of this stuff at this point. I'm really good at predicting like trend reversals and everything, but it's virtually impossible for most people to do that at certain time frames. But this is actually interesting. Hold on a second. Let me check something. Do I have that on my other PTC chart? Hold on, stand by. Let me check something. It doesn't. I saw an ascending triangle, but it doesn't look as good there. I rely more on the Stoke now than this LA wave count. So, again, I think we're going to correct soon. I think it's going to be a... I don't think we're going to see one of those major corrections yet. The market's still too bullish. So, for this correction here that I'm talking about, I'm not talking about a big dump to 40K. That would be quite a ways off still, I think. Maybe getting towards the end of the month into next month, that could be possible. Maybe down over here where the bottom of the cloud is around 40, we could, down the road, get a bigger correction down to those levels. But right now, on the shorter term, with this daily wave giving us a push back up and not quite making it to all-time highs, we could probably correct back down to the lower 50s, 52 to 53, certainly possible. We do have really good support here where I have that red line at about 55, but it didn't hold on the last dump. We blew right past it. It held really well over here, but it blew past it right there in that correction. So I think we're going to get a smaller correction. Considering this was a corrective wave, this ABC, this initial one wave is an initial motive, so we are going to get a corrective wave, but it's probably only going to come back down to anywhere from like the 50% retracement to the 786, most likely the 50% or 618. 618 being that golden ratio, right? That's that main, most common target for a correction would be the 618. So we could get back down to about 54K. I'm just looking at questions. So the higher time frames, like looking at the monthlies and stuff, you can't do anything with that at that far out. It's like that example I gave you on the daily where the Stoke can be really high and the RSI can be really high, where it's screaming correction, but it just keeps going up. This has been driving up beyond the technicals. So you have to pretty much ignore the technicals at that point. The technicals, everything about what we're seeing here with the oscillators and MACD, every technical indicator was screaming big correction, big correction, big correction, and then we went into a parabolic bull run. So at that point, you're just like, fuck it, I don't care what the technicals say. All those other variables are having much more of an impact than the technicals. And that's why I don't want you to put too much stock into the TA, but you obviously want to look at it, and you want to look at the models, and risk management is crucial. That's why, again, if you're in the group, you know how much I teach risk management. It's so important to be prepared for all eventualities. So, yes, we could see a very large correction. If that were to happen, you want to make sure you have stop losses in place, and you want to have a game plan. You want to have assets that are on the exchanges. Certain stuff you might want to keep in cold storage so you don't have to worry about it, and you can let the market do its thing, and long term you don't worry because you're waiting for another couple of years before you'd even consider selling. Sure. Certain assets that are actual trades where you're looking to make your profits and you're sitting on a large amount of profit, those are the trades where you might not want to keep them in cold storage. You might want to place them on exchanges so you have the ability to quickly sell if something happens. If we have some sort of black swan event like what happened with the initial Corona crash or something like that, like we had in March last year, you want to be prepared for things like that, and you want to be able to have the option of setting a stop loss and take profit levels and things. So you want to keep certain assets on the exchanges. So that's a big part of your risk management strategy, is being prepared for that, since we really can't say one way or the other. BTC is just too hard to predict right now because we are extra technical, post-technical. Those other fundamentals are in play, and we have to see how that stuff works itself out before we make a final decision. But on the shorter term stuff, yeah, the 0.5 and the 618 would be really great opportunities to buy in for a big bounce on the shorter term stuff, looking at the daily correction based on the daily model I just showed you guys. You can see the same thing here on the 4 hour. Getting a correction down to the 618, anywhere from the 0.5 to the 618 would probably be a really great support range, especially in the 4 hour. The 222 EMA is right there along with the bottom of the cloud. That's going to be a really strong support. But again, we could push higher. If we can get above this 59.5 resistance right here, we're fighting it right now. We're coming up against the top of that wedge formation, that or that pennant. So this wedge formation right here, I mean, we're at that topside resistance. If we break through that topside resistance with any force and get above that horizontal resistance at 59.5, that's big. That leads me to believe we're probably going to make a big push over the next 24 hours. But the higher time frames are all going to look bearish, especially if you're looking at the oscillator indicators. Like the weekly, the monthly, all of them. You're at that point where you really can't rely on it. I mean, you are seeing some pretty strong bearish divergence, right? If you look at the RSI is starting to come down as the price continued up. So there's a lot of bearish signs on the higher time frames, but I always teach my students this too, because when you're looking at higher time frames like this, like when I'm looking at an hourly and a 4-hour chart, and a lot of you guys, even people who aren't in the group, you're familiar with how I trade when I share free analyses and stuff. I always talk about, I have a really precision entry where like I got in right here before the breakout, my stop loss was super tight, and I got in, it was a really great prediction. The way you can do that is by looking at different time frames, and I can look at a model on an hourly chart, and I can say within the next 1 or 2 candles we're going to break out, and I'm very accurate. Now, if I'm looking at a monthly chart and I say within the next 1 or 2 candles based on my model it's going to break out, well, that could be 2 months away, right? So you can't trade based off of that. That's impossible. Let's use this information. Who the hell is going to make a trade because something may or may not happen within 2 months? If I tell you that we're going to know within a couple hours, then it's a little bit easier to decide and say, hey, if we know within a couple hours, then it's obviously worth it to take the trade because we're really close to that breakout. But you don't want to tie up your resources because there may or may not be a pump or a dump over the course of 2 to 3 months. So that's why the time frame thing is really important, and you can't really come up with detailed, surgically precise analyses on the higher time frames. Which is why I'm mostly a day trader. I do long-term stuff, obviously, but I'm mostly a day trader because it's much easier to predict that stuff, and I'm all into predicting the future, hence my time machine jokes. BTC is not breaking out per se. I mean, it's starting to dip. It's starting to push above the trendline resistance, which is good. It could still wick up and come back down. The key test is going to be the resistance and this candle closing. So there's an hour and a half left on this 4-hour candle. If this 4-hour candle doesn't just break above that 59.5 resistance, but closes above it, that's big. Because look, this time we got rejected with the candle. In these cases, the candles broke above, but both of them, the candles never broke above. Just the wicks did, but the body of the candle didn't. Same thing here. We had wicks breaking above that resistance, wicks breaking above that resistance, another wick breaking above that resistance, but we haven't had a candle that actually closed above that resistance. If that were to happen, that would be a really good sign. Again, I think BTC looks really bullish short term, but I also know that there is a pretty relatively big correction coming where we go back down to the lower 50s. That is coming. It's just too difficult to tell you precisely when, which is why I want to move on now and get into some of the altcoins, and I can look and see if we can find some good short-term trades. If BTC makes an aggressive push up, then the altcoins are going to run, so we're going to want to be on top of that. So let's take a look at what the short-term models look like on the alts, and we'll see what we got. Somebody asked me about FIL. I'll get to that because that was one of my best trades of like the month. I'll show you right now. Not that it was the most profitable trade of the month, but it's definitely up there. $460% at the top. Now back down to 350. Now I did sell a lot of this on the way up. But my FIL trade was ridiculous. When I get into this trade, and I share this publicly, this wasn't only for the private group. I did this for free on YouTube. I had this trendline support. I bought in right at the bottom of the trendline support with 1.2% risk. My stop loss was 1.25% below my entry. And we got the breakout, and it was a massive breakout. And I did sell a bunch on the way up. So I didn't make nearly as much money as I could have, but at this point I still have a position left, and I'm at about 350% profit on it. I'm holding it for the time being. Why are the Ichimoku dynamics on this pane? That's weird. There we go. Stand by 1 sec. Jenny's calling me. I just want to make sure the kids are okay. All right, guys, I need to step away for a few minutes, but just to quickly finish what I was saying on Phil, on FIL. So obviously the initial breakout call was based on trend lines. That did really well, but then look what happened. It came back down to touch the 55 EMA. That would have been the perfect time to buy in because that's where it exploded from, and that's my Ichima dynamic support, one of the most important supports on my chart, and never even got it close to the 55 again. So that was an incredible trade before it. As far as what I would do with it right now, it's pretty high and it's pretty outside of that range of the Ichima dynamics. Let me look at the higher time frames just to see. Everything is going to be pretty. At this point, if you missed out on FIL, I wouldn't even really try to get in. I might even just close this out, take 350% on the rest of my position and call it a day, and then I can get back in when I feel like she's ready to make another move. I made enough money on the way up selling off. I might just keep my remaining FIL position indefinitely and just throw it in cold storage and say, you know what, let's let that ride long term and give it a few more months. See what happens once we get that next phase of alt season. Shit. Jenny needs me to come upstairs and the kids are up and they won't go back to bed. I'm just trying to think of if I should pause this stream. Maybe I'll just end this stream here, and then I'll do a stream just with my private group, the second half. Although I wanted to do some more freebie streaming for public peeps and YouTube who aren't in the group. Although maybe I'll get your cheap asses to entice your cheap asses to join the group and support me by making you go to the group to get the rest of the live stream. That's my special Jew brain at work. Just so you know, if you're not in the group now and you do join the group, you are allowed to make all the Jew jokes you want. Because I give everybody a card. You all have permission. And if anybody ever gives you shit, just show them my bar mitzvah photos and say, nope, Jesse gave me a card. I got the K card. I'm allowed to make as many Jew jokes as I want. Alright, what do I do? Fuck it. If you guys don't mind waiting 5 or 10 minutes, I'll pause this stream. I'll leave it up. I'm just going to put text on the chart saying I'll be back in, 10 minutes. And you guys can sit tight. If you don't want to wait and you want to leave, then whatever. But when I come back, we're going to find some good trades, hopefully. So hopefully you guys will wait. Alright, I will be back. Sorry about this, guys. But, kids are my priority. Alright, I'm back. All good. So, I don't know if I'm going to sell my remaining back of FAL. I may. What did I say? We could wick above that resistance, but we got to close above that resistance, right? That's going to be the big one. Can we close above that 59.5 resistance? Let me see. I'm just checking a couple other things, and then we'll run through the alts. Come on, what's going on with this? Come on. There we go. All right, let's see what we can find here. We got Ethereum. Waiting on Bitcoin, see what happens. Got an hour left for that candle to close. Everything else is going to follow. So let's focus on the alts. Now, RSR. I had a great trade on RSR. Up at the top. Was up like 35%. Now I'm only up like 19%. So, how do I play this? It's a semi-tough call because it looks like it wants to come down, right? That candle's coming down pretty hard. But the 55 and the 99 EMAs have held really well, as have the top of the cloud. So I'm thinking I may want to hold it. Now, across the board, you can see, just like I was telling you guys about my model, right? Look at the Stoke model. Stoke gets really high, comes back down. Right as that happens, you see the price coming down. However, in a bull market, instead of having these full cycles where we go up and down and up and down, sometimes you get locked into a cycle like that. A lot of the time you get one of these. A big move up, and then you see how that dips down right here on the Stoke, and then the Stoke goes back up prematurely. Look what happened here. Price went up, we got a dip just like we're getting now, and then we shot up again. So, just because we're correcting here based on that model doesn't mean we have to, because if you look at the lower time frames, we do have a lot of strength in this area. We have the Ichimoku cloud here, we have the EMAs here, we have the 55 EMA, the 99 EMA, and the top of the cloud. So there is a lot of support here in place. I don't know that I would buy into a new trade on RSR here, although it's not terrible. It depends how much risk you would have to take. If you were to buy right here, you would have to buy right here and place your stop loss like 4% below your entry to get it underneath that 4%, underneath that 99 EMA. Let me just take a look. There might be something to do short term on RSR. A little bit more precision, because look, if you look at the hourly model, the bottom of the cloud's holding except for a few wicks that go down. This candle has closing in a couple minutes, so it might bounce back up to inside the cloud. But the 222 EMA is working really well, right? So if you were to buy right here, theoretically, place your stop loss like 1.92% below your entry. If it goes down 2%, whoop-de-doo, you lose 2%. It's a pretty small loss. But if the 222 EMA does hold, you could potentially make 17, 20, 25%. That's why my model works so well, because I risk a small amount, 1 or 2 or 3%, but my breakouts do 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, sometimes 500%, like my FIL trade or my MPXS trade I did 28x on, right? So you can make massive returns with a small initial risk, and risk management is obviously a crucial aspect of that, and that's why that's a big part of what I teach to my traders and my members of the group, you know. We also have some good support. This wick right here. So, and this is some of the stuff I'll teach you over time, but with the naked eye, this really stands out to you. It's like this wick looks like it stopped in the middle of nowhere. There's no EMAs there, but watch what happens when I add a horizontal line right there. Check this out. Big bounce right there, right? Big rejection right here. Big rejection right here. Big bounces right here. Big rejections right here. Big rejections right here. Turns out this is actually a really strong support. So now you could buy RSR right here, place your stop loss 2% below your entry, and there's a pretty decent chance that this support structure between the 222 EMA and the horizontal support will hold, especially considering the fact that the 4-hour model still looks pretty bullish. It looks like it's starting to turn south, but that's still overall pretty bullish. So I like that. I already have this open trade on RSR. I'm going to enter a new trade right here. It's already bouncing on the 222. So let me do this. Just grab my phone. I'm placing my buy orders. I'm buying right now. I'm buying RSR, and then I'm going to fix up the chart to show you guys what my trade looks like. If you want to buy with me, you better hurry because I'm placing my orders right this second. So 2% risk for a much larger potential return. All right. So I'm buying right there. Oh, I just did, although I still have a couple buy orders that I haven't completely filled. It was down here when I started doing that. So let's say right here, and my stop loss goes, in this case, it's going to be a little bit lower, 2.3% below my entry. I'd like to make it a little bit tighter. 2.25% below my entry. So by buying where I bought, my stop loss is 2.25% below my entry. I can afford to lose 2.25%. That's a pretty small amount, right? Now, do I want to lose 2.25% on all of my trades? Obviously not. But if I'm getting in on trades where the potential upside is huge, then 2.25% is a very, very small amount to risk, right? Now I could draw this a couple ways. I can include those big wicks, which I usually don't. Either way, we do have what amounts to a falling wedge formation. So this is overall quite bullish. So I'm now in. My order's just filled. There's enough volume and enough liquidity on this coin that the 20 people in the stream, even if you guys all bought with me, you know, you're not going to pump it or anything. So don't expect it to immediately pump because we're buying it, but based on the technicals and based on my model, I have a lot of confidence about this. I'm going to share this with the rest of the group because some of the guys in the group might have not made it into the stream. What did I just saw a note on Chris said FIL skyrocketed. Yeah. How many people in here actually got into my FIL trade with me? Because I share that shit publicly. I was on a public stream, and my initial risk was like 1.25% below my entry. And I said if it breaks out, it's going to break out really big. And it did, to say the least. It absolutely exploded. to the tune of being up 350% right now. And at one point it did a 4x. So again, RSR, I'm in. Let's see how she plays out. It's looking really good so far. Let's run through the watch list and see if we can spot anything else that looks good like that. RVN actually looks quite good. And the thing about RVN is the daily model does not look overbought. Like, you know how I showed you on some of the other assets, they had that daily Stoke was really high. And back here you can see we have these full wave cycles, up and down, up and down. We don't really have that here. It's all over the place. But the fact that it's that low is a decent size, a decent sign. I do like that. I also like that the RSI isn't that high. So if I were to drop down from the daily and look at the 4 hour, do we have anything on RVN on the 4 hour? Any good supports we could use? I mean, it's riding a rough support range now. I already have an open longer term trade on RVN. I'm looking for a short term precision entry here. Some of my past short term entries on RVN did absolutely incredibly. As a matter of fact, I had this model, this long-term model, I had out ages ago to that potential 120% run. I had that planned out all the way at the beginning of the month, or the end of last month even. And so far, I mean, that wave 1 and the 2 correction has played out perfectly. So my model has been on point on this bad boy. If we can get that big breakout run, that would be huge. Let's see if I look at the hourly. Do we see any potential supports that we could use? See, that's hard to say. It's really hard to say. It's hard to see a precision buy here, but I do like the fact that we are in the apex of a bull flag, at least, assuming that is the bottom and we don't go lower. Let me just double check again what the other time frames look like. The 4 hours all over the place. It's really hard to say. The weekly is impossible. And the daily. A long-term buy, mid to long-term hold on RVN would be good now. Short-term, I don't see a good short-term entry where I could buy in with like a really tight stop loss. So that's a little tougher. NPXS, I already have an existing bag. My existing bag, NPXS was my most recent one, is up 800% almost, but my main original NPXS, no, that was it. Oh, MPXS wasn't my big. That was VTHO. That was my 28X, where I did 2,800%. VTHO, I'm up 800% here. 1,600% if you include my first original buy. So I already have this new trade here to add on to my longer term position. So I'm going to let that one ride. Now, I got into Cody last night thinking she was going to bounce, partly based on the Stoke, and then she just dumped much lower, so I kind of want to stay away from her, even though she still looks pretty bullish. I think I'm going to just stay away for now. Even if she does run, I'm fine with it. I kind of want to keep my distance because the way the model played out last night, it looked really good, and then it failed, so I feel like I'm just going to stay away from Cody for right now. Key looks decent, nothing too impressive. Vet actually is starting to look really good. The daily on Vet's not that concerning. The 4 hour model looks pretty good. So you can see the 4 hour model top of the cloud, launch. Top of the cloud, bounce. Bouncing again on the top of the cloud. Is it possible the top of the cloud's going to fail and it's not going to hold the support anymore? Sure, it happened at this point, right? But you're betting the odds. Chances are, the probability is higher that the top of the cloud is actually going to hold. But let's look at some other stuff. Let's see, do we have a nice trend line forming here? There's a good trend line there. Now, that correction was a relatively small correction, but that happens in a bullish market. In a bull market, you don't expect it to retrace to the 0.5 or the 618 fib retracement every time, right? Sometimes you get these big runs up, and then you get a really small correction to just the 382, and then it goes up again. Because that's what happens when you're in a bull market. You don't get the larger corrections because once you correct and you come down, a lot of people see that buying opportunity and they buy it up. But that's why it's important to understand what's going on behind the scenes. One of the analogies I always use is when you're looking at order books, and you know, a lot of you know what buy walls and sell walls are on an order book, right? On the order books, when you're looking at the order books, you'll see there's one big buy order or one big sell order, right? Like say there might be one big sell order at 0.099 for VeChain, right? And every time the price gets up to 9.9 cents, every time the price hits this level right here, it gets rejected and comes back down, and then it makes another attempt and it gets rejected and comes back down. If you look at the order books, you'll see a sell wall where somebody is selling a really big bag of VET at 9.9 cents. So when you see a support or a resistance on a chart, not all the time, but a lot of the time, that's actually the buy wall or the sell wall on the order books. And understanding those concepts and what's going on behind the scenes, if somebody actually is there to teach you that stuff or you figure it out on your own, is tremendously helpful because it allows you to make sense of what you're seeing on the charts. Same thing when you're looking at stuff shorter term like this. So that's just one example. What made me go into that? What was I talking about that made me go into that analogy? I forgot what it was. Well, whatever. But somebody can remind me maybe. I started talking about something, real world scenarios and what's going on in the real world and behind the scenes, and then I went into that tangent. In a bull market, right? So what's going on behind the scenes is you're seeing massive runs up and people are buying, the price is going up. So when the price starts to correct in a normal market without any sort of extenuating circumstances, without being in a hyper bullish post and hyper technical market, extra technical market, you might say, all right, well, normally you get corrections to the 50% fib or the 61.8%. That 0.618 fib retracement is that golden ratio where you more often see retracements to that level before the next move up. That may still happen on big moves, but shorter term, when you're looking at stuff like this, it makes total sense that you get these much smaller corrections because when the market is that bullish, people are trying to get in and they're looking for every opportunity. So as soon as it corrects, people want to get in. Correct it again, people just want to get in because the market is so bullish. So you don't need to necessarily see those larger corrections. A lot of the time, a smaller correction is more than sufficient. Now right here, based on my Ichimoku model, where I'm using the top of the cloud and the 55 and the 99 EMA, there's a lot of support there. Now, I wish the 4-hour Stoch was lower because like when it bounced off the cloud right here, look where the 4-hour Stoch was, all the way down here, starting a new cycle, right? When we bounced on the top of the cloud right here, where was that 4-hour Stoch? It was all the way down here. It just started a new cycle. So we're still on the way down. We could theoretically go a little bit lower, but there's a decent trend line here. We have the 99 EMA here for protection. So if I were to buy VET here and place my stop loss below the 99 EMA, that would be like 5% below my entry. So that won't work as a short-term trade. That's too much risk. I don't want to place my SL 4% below my entry. So this is a little bit of a tougher one. I'm going to come back and look at VET again. Let me just move it up to the top. I'll come back and look at it again because it looks pretty good. I just don't see one of those. I don't see a surgical entry where I can buy in at that exact right time. Now, Zcash has done well, and virtually every time I bought into it, we've gotten pumps. I got a dump on the last one and haven't gotten back in since. Now, I was right. It was extremely bullish. I just got in too early before that one market dump, and it kind of ruined it. Unfortunately, if it wasn't for that one dump, I would have been buying in right before this launch. So that kind of sucks. I've been saying for a while to watch privacy tokens, so that applies to XMR, it applies to Zcash, and a few others. I've been doing pretty well trading them, day trading, but I also have positions in all of these since the beginning of the year, really the beginning of February, especially Zcash. I made a killing on the initial run-up because I've been saying for a while privacy tokens are going to be really big, especially with new retail investors entering the market. They're going to hear about privacy tokens, and they're going to want to put their funds in those assets because they want to be able to keep their assets safe and secure and out and free from prying eyes so the IRS doesn't know where their money is. So I think that's going to be an important sector moving forward, especially as more retail money flows into the space. So Zcash, I closed out my longer term stuff, my short term stuff. I just have my long term bag to answer your question. If you're still holding Zcash from any of my longer term entries, I mean, I got in way back in the beginning of the year. So I have some longer term stuff, like on this buy, for instance, this ascending triangle. I had gotten a long term bag early on in March, and then I was actually underwater on that long term bag for a minute, and now this pump brought me right back into the green, so I'm still holding that. But I'm only holding the longer term stuff, like here, and I didn't make any more long term plays. These were just short term trades. Then I could take a look at H-bar if I remember. I don't know if that's still on my watch list since my whole watch list got kind of screwed up. BNB, my model was telling me it was going to run, and just that one dip kind of screwed things up for me. But it did hold right at the 222 EMA, which is my key Ichima dynamic support. So my model, if I was watching at the time, I definitely would have bought on that 222 bounce, just like I did on RSR. She's still holding? Yeah, she's still holding. That's good. Here's VTHO, 2800. So that's a 28x from my main long-term entry in the beginning of the year in January. 28x. I'm up on VTHO. Well, now it's back down a little bit, obviously. Quite a bit. But I've added more to it, and I've accumulated to my long-term bag here and there. So I'm doing quite well on VTHO overall long-term. I don't see... Well, maybe. That's starting to look really enticing with that bottomed out Stoke. We're starting to see that green candle. There's still 20 hours left. It just started. 4 hours had a tough time jump starting. I don't know what to do about VTHO. That one. I don't know if there's any new trades. Alpha trade for the original 30% pump. That did really well. And might be worth a new trade. May dip once more, so I may wait on some short-term trades. I might want to see how things play out first before I make any commitments on a short-term move on VTH, on Alpha rather. Now, let's see. AVAX. What's she doing? She's sitting on support here. We're below the dynamics, my Ichima dynamics. I'm going to stay away for any short-term trades on her. So some things about CHG actually look quite bullish here. I also did quite well on CHZ because I had bought in down here. I was up 380. I don't even know that. My long-term bag, I haven't checked it in a long time. That's got to be a 10x by now. It's probably a 20x by now. Jesus. Well, now because it came back down, I'm up 3,200%. Holy shit, I wish I kept a bigger bag. I do not have nearly the size bag. I wish I had a much bigger bag, but still, I made 32x on CHZ. Of course, we're talking about a couple $1,000 profit because I didn't have that much of it to begin with, but I mean, I did. I was doing day trades on CHC, and this entire run up, I made a killing. But if I kept like a couple $1,000 worth, man, I would have made $50,000 on that run. But it is what it is. Can't afford to put $10,000 in every freaking trade. I'd be fucking run out of money in a day. The amount that I trade. So there's a really good support here. It's been riding. It's a good thing and a bad thing. When you have a good support like that, of course, it means you have a good support where you can enter into a good trade and then it breaks up and you make money, right? On the downside, you also have the possibility where it can form a descending triangle, which continuously testing that support while you have a downtrending, when you have downtrending highs, creates a bearish formation in that descending triangle. So that's always a risk. See what I mean? So we actually have a descending triangle here. Overall, it's really bullish, though, so it's probably still worth considering a longer-term entry. I might want to wait for the Stoke to get lower. But I do like the horizontal support there. This cloud's actually going to be key. There's a really good chance that we never go below this cloud. So we might end up hitting this wall and just launching up. Thoughts on the stock market. You know what? When it comes to stock market trading, you want to know what my analysis is? This is the difference between the players in the stock market and the players in the crypto market. The players in the stock market want to screw you so the system can succeed and they can get rich. Players in the crypto market want to screw the system so you can succeed and they can get rich. Yes, the big boys in crypto want to get rich, and they're selfish cocksuckers just like the big players in the stock market who want to get rich because they're selfish cocksuckers. The difference is they need the system in the stock market to feed off of our losses so they can get rich. In the crypto space, they want to tear down that system, and they want us to succeed because our success means that CZ becomes a multi-billionaire. See the difference? It's a rebellion of sorts, and that's why one of the reasons I don't trade that much in the stock market anymore is because every single trade I make gets reported to the fucking IRS. And it's really hard, especially when you're day trading micro caps and you're in penny stocks every day, getting in and out, and you're dealing with hundreds of trades. It sucks. As a day trader, I'm much happier dealing in crypto, where I could just have a spreadsheet that I export from my trading software, that I export from the exchange. I could just hand that to my accountant and he could just deal with it. And there's certain stuff that doesn't have to get claimed. And hypothetically speaking, if I happened to have a lot of my trading assets that weren't in my name and had no affiliation with me whatsoever, it's theoretically possible that I wouldn't have to pay taxes on that money. Not that I would ever do that. Obviously, I pay every cent in taxes that the IRS would want me to pay, of course. But hypothetically speaking, you have that option. So I don't do much trading in the stock market anymore. I'm really liking CHC. I'm getting that tingling feeling. I don't know how to play it, but I'm really liking it. Now, I've been telling the group all day that OGN is about to pop. Like, all day. All day. Anybody in the group, in the chat right now, can tell you I probably posted it 3 times already. Most recently, let me see. And even before I just posted this RSR trade, I told everybody, and again, OGN is very close. Hopefully she doesn't blow before I get to it in the live stream. And she's starting to break up. So at this point, hold on. I'm just going to buy it, and then I'll deal with the analysis after. Let me get the rest of my buys in. I had a couple buys in that already filled, but they weren't very big. So I'm going to place another buy order right now. And then I will break down the chart for you. do this. My phone works for most trading, but I'm trying to do more quick things, and I want to place multiple orders and multiple limit orders. I obviously, it's faster to do it on the computer. Okay. All right, I'm good to go. All right, so with OGN, I really, really love the Stoke model on this. We had the initial run up, dip, wave up on the Stoke, follow the Stoke, right? As I'm moving with the Stoke, look what happens with the price. Down on the price, up on the price, down on the price, turning up, especially when you're oversold like that. That's opportune time for a big breakout run. We do have this trend line resistance here, which means now we could push up and only go that 5 to 10% to that trend line resistance, because the daily model does look like it wants to come down. However, doesn't necessarily mean it can't go any higher than that. So the fact that it's a really good entry point now means that I'm able to buy in, place my stop loss about 4% below my entry. Now let me just show on the hourly so I can figure out exactly where my SL is going to go. Let's see. My average entry price, I don't know exactly where. I'm going to have to calculate where it is. But let's just roughly say what I'll do is I don't have a huge bag, so I'm going to place my stop loss 5% below my entry, which I don't do for short-term trades. I don't set my stop loss that low unless I plan for it ahead of time. So I'm going to treat this like I would treat a longer-term trade, where I'm going to place my stop loss that's 5%. I'm essentially treating this as a midterm trade where I put less money into it, right? So it's not as much of a trade, of an amount of capital that's going into it. My average entry is lower, but I'm going to just set my entry a little bit higher on here just so when I share it with the group, it makes more sense to people. If we break above the top of the cloud right here, we're going and testing that double top. So it's going to go up 30%. So it's obviously worth the risk. I'm going to treat this as a midterm hold. But this is a lot riskier, so it's not when I get into a trade where my stop loss is 5% below my entry, I'm not putting in the amount of money. Like, say I put in like $1,000 to every trade. Say I put in $10,000 to every one of my short-term trades, right? Anytime I get into a short-term trade where I risk 1 or 2 or 3%, say I always do like a $10,000 trade. If I find a trade where I have to risk 5%, instead of putting in $10,000, maybe I'll put in $4,000 or $3,000, or instead of putting in $1,000, I'll put in $300 or $400. So I reduce my exposure. I don't put in as much. So in this case, I put in about half as much as I normally would. So say I put 10 grand into most trades. By putting $5,000 into this trade, it's as if I'm risking 2.5% on a $10,000 trade. So my risk is still the same as it would have been in that case. Does that make sense? Now, my actual SL, because of where my real entry is closer to 4%. 3.94%. And that's only because I've been telling the group all day that IGM was about to pop, so I set some buy orders there in case she started moving up. But yeah, I've been telling them all day that thing looked primed. Alright, let's keep going down the list, see what else we can find. No, Reef's actually not looking bad, but that's only on the hourly. Let me see what the 4-hour looks like. Didn't quite get down to the bottom of the cloud. I love getting rejected at the top of the cloud, exactly like my model says. Top of the cloud is going to be a main EHMA dynamic resistance, and then we come down and we hold at the horizontal support. How much further is it down? That's the question. Let me see here. Daily Stoke's getting pretty close, getting nice and low. There's still a really good chance. I mean, this horizontal support's holding well, so are each of my dynamic supports. There's a good chance it dumps back down to the bottom of the cloud. So I'm not going to make a short-term trade on Reef. I do have long-term bags, but I'm not going to make a short-term trade on Reef right now. Same goes for Sushi. Last couple times I tried to make short-term trades, I got burned, but I do have a long-term bag that I'm confident in, so I'll just leave it at that for now. My XRP trade has done well. At this point, it could be a good potential new entry as well. Other than that one couple dump candles, it's looked strong, and my EMAs have held well. It's not as perfect as I'd like it to be, so I'm not going to pull the trigger on a trade yet. I'll come back and check it out. All right, so it looks like 30 minutes left for this candle to potentially close, like we talked about, above that resistance. It's looking really good. I mean, it's breaking out substantially higher than that horizontal resistance, so it's definitely a good sign. Especially to get into one of those sideways actions where the overbought stoke doesn't actually turn us bearish. So I have my Ethereum trade up over 25%. I don't know if I want to get into a new Bitcoin trade. I might just want to stick to Ethereum, but there is going to be a lot of resistance up here just above 2K, given that was the prior top. So I may have to at least sell a big chunk of that. Let's see, with BTC moving well, how are the other majors? LTC is looking bullish, so at least as of right now, but she's moving pretty slowly. We're not getting any sort of explosive moves out of her. Oh yeah, my BNT trade, that's been doing really well too. Forgot about that. That's on my other Binance account, so I have to go adjust my stop loss on that. So in this case, I'm now sitting on a little over 10% profit. We're in the cloud. That looks really good on the 4-hour. The daily is getting pretty overbought. That makes me a little nervous. I might have to close this trade, or at least sell half of it to take that profit, and then the rest of it I can let it ride. All right, let me keep running through them, and we'll see. Dash is another privacy token that I've made some amazing trades on. Look at these. You know, I got some great entries on these guys. 40, 50, 67, 70% runs in some cases, especially earlier on the big run. Now we had a decent correction. Like, here's a perfect example. Look at this. Like, bottomed out on the stoke, right? And then a massive run up. So, bottomed out on the stoke, and then a 30% run. Right to the top of the Ichimoku cloud. So, there's a good chance she's actually going to correct here. So, I don't want to make any short-term trades on her. I'm going to stay back out of Dash for now. Other than Elon causing a Doge pump by tweeting some stupid joke, haven't seen anything appealing on Doge, really. I don't think there's anything I could do with Doge. I'm going to leave her alone for now. ENJ, I got in a little too early. We did have a falling wedge, and she's been trending up since. Maybe I have another opportunity to make that right and actually do a good job getting in. So we have good support from the 55 EMA here, so that's a good sign. I could make it relatively tight with an SL there. Let's see. So we have the bottom of the cloud's holding well. The 222 is there. If I were to buy short term on ENJ, stop loss goes below. That'll work. That actually works. I could do that. I can live with that. I think that's enough risk that I'm comfortable taking the risk. Entering in with my stop loss below the 222 and the trendline support at 2%. Again, 2% is a very, very small potential loss. If I can limit it to only losing 2%, not a penny more, I'm quite happy with that potential result, especially considering the fact if she does break out and get back to that prior top, this should not be so high. You know, we could be looking at 30 to 40%. 28, 30, 40%. So it's a pretty substantial run, and that's just if it gets to a prior top. If she breaks out even higher, that's a whole other story. Now, will that happen? Based on the daily, probably not. We probably have to come down a bit. But I do like short term what the potential is, and even if I don't go for that 30%, even if I'm just able to get a run up for like 10 or 12%, if I'm only risking 2% on it, then that's definitely going to be worth it. So I'll pull the trigger on ENJ. If it was more than 2% risk, I probably wouldn't, because it doesn't look like it has like a 50% run in for her. It looks like she could potentially do that smaller, maybe like 10, maybe 12 or 15 even percent run. It doesn't look like she has another huge massive pump in her right now. But I'm only risking 2%. I'm placing my stop loss in 2 seconds. I'm doing it multitasking on my phone. So that's why I'm using this more as a short-term trade, because I don't see the huge potential breakout run, but it's a small enough amount risk that it's worth it to go for it, just to see if I can make it quick. 10, 15% with a relatively small amount of risk. My FET models have been pretty damn on point. But let's see if this latest correction got us down enough. Oh my god! Alright, I'm going to place my orders. I'll be right back. I'm buying FET right here. I'll break it down in a minute. All right, I'm good. So I'm in FET. So I'm really liking the 4 hour. So the Stoke is low, which is a good sign, right? Every time the Stoke gets this low, look at the Stoke here, price bounced. Stoke here, price bounced. Stoke here, price bounced. So we're pretty low. It doesn't look as good because it looks like it's turning back south, like it's not actually going to hold. However, while the daily model is kind of in the middle of nowhere, the 4 hour model is sitting right on top of the cloud and the 55 EMA. So that's each of my dynamic supports in place, right? So all in all, risking 2.5%, it's 100%. It's definitely worth it. Not for you. I'm not saying it's worth it for everybody, but again, I don't tell people what to do and what to trade because my risk profile is different than yours. Like, to me, risking 2.5% on this trade for a potential breakout profit is clearly worth it. I'm happy to risk 2.5%. If it quickly dumps and it stops me out and I lose 2.5%, fine. I'm completely okay with that because I know the risks and I'm comfortable with the risk because my risk profile, my risk tolerance means that I'm able to lose that small amount of money, and it looks like the potential return greatly outweighs any potential loss. It's dipping a little bit, so I have a few buy orders, right? So my buys are filling as we speak. So my ultimate target entry, ideally, if it gets all the way down to the 99 EMA and taps the 99 EMA, would be right around here at like 6.687, like right there would be my target entry. But just for shits and giggles, I'm going to make it a little bit higher and just say, all right, assuming that my other lower buy orders don't fill, and I end up only filling my orders at the current price, my stop loss I'll set about a little over 2% below my entry. I could probably afford to risk a little more, especially since I have my buy orders a little lower and they're filling right now. So let's call my stop loss 2.5% below my entry. In reality, since my entry is going to be a little bit lower, if we get a little bit lower to fill my next, it has to get a little bit lower than right here. I got another buy order, a tiny bit lower, closer to the 99 EMA, and if that fills, my average entry will be a little bit lower. My stop loss will be about 2.25% below my entry. But it's I'd say, it's in the middle of a correction, but I'm trying to catch the bottom of the correction, so it's probably a medium high risk trade. I really do like the support structure, and again, it's just worth the risk to me. It's just I'm accepting the risk because the potential profit is so much greater than the risk. Now what I'm also doing here, hold on. It's still worth it. It's close enough. I mean, if it were to dump below the 99 and stop me out, it's probably going all the way down to 62, but I want to get into a long-term position here. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to buy. Let me see if the 99 holds. I'm going to buy a longer-term position here on FET. I'm going to buy it for a mid to long-term hold. And for that one, I won't even have an SL to start. But it all depends if the 99 holds. So let's see. All right, she's holding so far. I'll give it a little bit of space. If she holds here, I'm going to enter into a long-term position, though, for sure, on FET. All right, I'm running out of steam. I got to shut it down pretty soon, guys, but I'm going to keep holding the remaining fill position I have open just because after being up 350%, I also took profit on the way up. I don't have a huge amount left right now, so I'm going to let it ride. I'm going to let it keep going. I wouldn't suggest getting into fill as a new entry now just because it's just so far out there. It's way beyond any of the dynamic supports. It'd be far too difficult to get in without taking an exorbitant amount of risk. So my FTM trade was one of my 10Xs. I made 11X on that trade, a little bit less because by the time I sold, I really only sold for like 980% profit. But still, that's a 10X, pretty close. I did very well on it. Now FTM here. Some of the other time frames don't look that good though. The hourly's not great either, I suppose. I'll skip on FTM for now. Let's check mana. So mana's looking interesting. You got a nice. You know I love falling wedges. Let's see what the 4 hour looks like. 4 hours got a pretty low stoke. Daly's not too bad. Ignoring that one wick makes it a falling wedge. Coming down to the 55 EMA on the top of the cloud. If I were to buy right here, stop loss 2.5% below. That's a little tight. I probably want my stop loss to be like a full 3% below entry. So what I'm going to have to do, because I'm going to get into mana here. So buying right there. SL about 3% below entry. I think it might dip a little bit to that 99 EMA and I could buy in at a lower price. It's a tough call, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to set my stop loss on mana. Again, this is a medium high risk trade. If we were already above the top of the cloud and I could use the top of the cloud for actual support, I'd be more confident. I got to go place my buy orders on this, but I'm trying to decide. I'm trying to make a final decision if I really want to pull the trigger on it. All right, I got some orders in, but just nothing too massive. So I did get some mana. Not a huge position, but I mean, my risk is still under 3%. It's not terrible. All right, that's good enough. HT is too far gone. Although that has been one of the top coins I've been talking about for quite a while. I think I hear the baby crying again. Give me 1 sec. Let me just go upstairs and check. I'll be right back. I'm going to do that, take a leak. Give me like just a couple minutes and I'll be right back. I promise. Yo, all right, I'm back. Do you know if the China Binance is blocked? Yeah, China Binance, because you're not really supposed to be using it if you're in America. So if you are, they don't report shit to the IRS. They don't send you a 1099 or anything. Binance US will send you a 1099 just like Coinbase does. Just like Coinbase or Kraken or any of those. Gemini. I'm just checking something. Stand by a sec, guys. All right, let's look at Holy shit! It's been over 2 hours on the stream. Ugh. All right, I'm gonna have to call it quits. Let's go through a few more, just because I got a few more on my watch list I wanted to look at. That is, Link's got a hefty resistance right there. 1322. Obviously, you can see I made really great trades on Link on the way up. Since the big dump on Link, it hasn't. It's been just kind of choppy, going sideways, and there's been a pretty strong resistance up at this three. What is it, 31.25 level or so? I probably wouldn't make a trade unless it finally breaks above that. So what I'll do, I'm just going to go here. I'm going to set a notification. If it starts pumping and gets above that level, I might want to start looking at a potential short-term entry. I mean, right now it's not a terrible time to get in if it was low risk. Like if I were to buy it here, See, that's not low risk because for my stop loss to go below like some of these supports, like the EMAs at the 55 and the 99, my stop loss would have to be like 5-6% below my entry. So I'm not going to do that. I'll stay out for now. All right. So what else should I look at? I'm only going to look at a few more charts. So I'll just run through what's in my watch list here. Neo is kind of out in the middle of nowhere, really high on the daily. I'm going to stay away from Neo for now. My initial 1 inch broke out nicely and then came back down. And now the Stoke indicates they have to correct again. I'll probably want to stay out of her for now. I have a long-term position with no SL. So I'll keep holding that. But I'm not going to make any short-term trades on 1 inch now. Alright, I think that's pretty much it. Let me just grab a few more of these on my list just to quickly run through them. I'll go real fast. The 4 hour on ADA doesn't look terrible. Bit of a descending triangle again. Short term, like right here. Maybe it's more of a pennant formation. So it's in the 4 hour. The Stoke hasn't been too reliable in the 4 hour. It is riding the EMAs though. My dynamic supports. If it's low risk enough, it could be worth making a play. I already have a long-term EDA bag going, but see, like, looking at the waves on the Stoke, a lot of the time it doesn't move at all. So I don't know if I want to do that. Algo, I do kind of like that bullish reset on the Stoke. Maybe this will be the last one of the night, or at least of this stream, and then I'll be available for the group in Discord. Now that works. So what I'm gonna do, because this one really actually I do like a lot. I'm gonna enter into Algo, and my SL is gonna go below the 99 EMA. It's gonna be under 2% below my entry. I don't have a specific target in mind just yet. I'll just pull that off of the screen. Just get it out of the way for now. I'm not gonna set a target on it just yet. But this is going to be my trade. Let me get my orders in really quick, and then I'll post that for the group, and then I'm going to look at like just 1 or 2 more charts. Alright, I'm good to go. So let's take a look at just like 1 or 2 more that I've been meaning to look at. So anybody who is not in Flux Trading Group, or anybody who watches this stream later, this is my group, so I'm going to notify the group. For people who aren't in the stream. Now, the stream is usually only for premium members. So basic members of the group, they'll see when I share my charts and stuff. Jesus. So I post my charts and stuff in there under my short-term trades, long-term trades. Like in long-term trades, I have my MTL bag did 250% the other day. This is my long-term CHZ and DNJ. Some of the ones I already talked about, RVN. Alpha did really well. VTHO. I got several pros. Like here, I had a 25x on VTHO. It literally went up 2,500%, and then my newer entry did 150%. So my long-term trades can do really well. This was 28x. That was at one point my VTHO position was 28x. So my short-term trades, long-term trades were all right there. And then we have our chats, stuff like that. Other analysts come and go, so some of them don't really contribute anymore. Some of them still do. It's not like a selling point of the group. Mostly I'm the selling point of the group. If you're in the premium group, you can DM me. We can get on the phone and we can talk on a voice call. I can help give you some input if you want to talk about strategy or whatever. I'm available all the time, and I love to do it. I'm really dedicated to this. I really want to help people become good traders and avoid getting wrecked. So if you join the premium group and you want to talk to me on the phone, you can just DM me. We get on a voice call. We can talk about strategy and your overall goals, strategies, different techniques, and figure out the best trading methodology for you. We can go over your portfolio on a personal level if you'd like to, whatever. I'm just there for my premium members. And then if you're in the basic group, you can still see the charts that I post. I'd really appreciate the support if you guys want to join, but you obviously don't have to. I like putting out free content every once in a while as well, just not that often. Obviously, I'm active in the group all the time, and I put out free crap relatively rarely compared to that. So in any case, it's my pitch for the group. And really quick, I just want to see if there's anything else in the 4-hour model that looks like a really, really good potential setup for a midterm or long-term hold. Even short-term holds. CELR looks pretty good here. Like one of my key supports is my Ichima dynamic support at the 55 EMA. So if you bought at the 55 EMA over here would have been great. Here would have been great. Here we're touching the 55 again. We're right in that same range and we're bouncing off the cloud. So this is my last trade, CELR. Now for this trade, I can't really do this as a short-term trade. It's already breaking up here. My stop loss would have to be pretty low. So I'll buy, if it holds here and pumps, great. And if it does fail with my longer term stuff, I usually won't have any stop loss. In this case, I'm going to treat it like a long-term trade, but I am going to set a stop loss. Doesn't have to be that far. 6% should be safe. So I'm going to do this. Let me just get finished setting my orders because I'm buying right now. And then this is one of the very few longer-term trades where I do set a relatively tight stop loss. It's not as tight as my short-term trades where it's 1 or 2 or 3% at the most. I'm going to go up to 6% on here. Alright, well, this is not usually how I trade on CELR, but I'm pulling the trigger on this one specifically because I think it has a lot of long-term potential. So I'm treating it as a long-term trade for sure. Alright, I know some people had requests in the chat and they wanted me to look at like theta and other stuff. I'm exhausted, so I'm not going to do that, but I might do that and then follow up with the group after. Same thing with Reef. I talked about it briefly. I'm exhausted. So this stream's already been going for 2.5 hours. I'm going to kill the stream here. If you guys want me to look at specific tokens, then feel free to join the premium group. And the next time I do a stream, I'll look at whatever the hell you want. I'll even look at your nudes if you're willing to share them. I don't care what it is, name a coin, I'll check it out. I'm happy to do it, but when I'm doing streams with the premium group, that is, obviously. Now, there are a bunch of members there are a bunch of people who are in the stream who aren't part of the group, who are just here, because it's my free content that I share every once in a while. I share a lot of content you guys don't see. For people who follow me on YouTube, Telegram, and other platforms, I share like a tiny amount of free content. I got to start doing more because, since Twitter suspended me, I don't have the reach I used to have, so I got to reach more people. But still, if you do want to support me, since I can't reach people anymore and I'm having difficulty bringing new people to the group without Twitter, I would really appreciate the support. If you join Premium for a few months, I think you'll absolutely love it. If you talk to existing members, 99% of them will tell you, dude, you have to join this group. It's incredible. Jesse loves his job. He loves doing this. This group is amazing. And if you happen to talk to the one or two assholes who hate the Premium group, then don't believe them. They're actually mad because I stole their girlfriend. So that's the only reason they're bad-mouthing the group. Only the good reviews are real. Everything else is fake. So you can watch back the entire 2.5-hour stream, if anybody who arrived late. So it'll be on my YouTube channel. You can watch back the entire thing. For people who are in the group, just go to the Discord and you'll see every trade that I entered and every chart that I did. I put it in the group so you guys can see that under the Darth Crypto short-term trade section. If you're not in the group and you just came because you follow me for my free content and you're too cheap to pay and support me by joining my group, my VIP group, then you'll have to watch the whole stream and actually find where I shared those trades. But some of them are doing pretty well already. Actually, you know what? Can't hurt. Let me just do this before I let you guys go. Let me do one. I'm just going to... Hold on. I'm just going to show you. So I got... Run through these. So CELR, Algo is definitely on the riskier side. But if this support holds, it could be a really, really great play. This support does have to hold. Now, it's probably worth getting into Algo as a longer-term hold here as well, but the Stoke on the daily is a little bit high, so I don't want to do that just yet. So if I take that small loss on this trade and I lose 1.9%, it's fine. I might enter a second trade and place my stop loss below. That's it depends how low it gets. For now, I'm going to leave it like this because it's pretty low risk. I got into mana, and that's sitting right at my entry. Here is FET holding right at my entry, another precision entry. ENJ, same thing. So these are all my newest entries, where you can see exactly where we are. And then you'll also, if you go back and watch the stream, I talked about some of my existing entries, my existing trades that are still doing really well, that I still have open. So, but if you have questions about the group, or if you do want to join, or if you want me to look at specific charts for you and give me a few coins to look at on live stream, I'd be happy to do it for you if you join the group. But if you want to join the group and you're not sure about it, if you feel like, hey, oh, here's some other shifty Jew trying to get people to give him money to share colorful charts. I'm really good at this, and I taught myself how to become a good trader after getting wrecked. I got wrecked in 2018 because I was a good investor and made money in 2017. I thought I knew how to day trade, and then I lost all my money. I lost almost 6 figures, and then I learned how to trade, and I made it back within a few months. So I share everything that I learned back in 2018 over the last few years since, and I've helped a lot of traders become successful. So if you do want to join, great. If you don't want to join, I don't really care. But whatever. Anyway, everybody, group members and public members, I appreciate you stopping by. I feel like we went over some good charts and some good brief educational topics. I really like in my live streams to focus on educational stuff and teach you guys about how to use Fibonacci extensions, teach you how to use Fib retracements and LA wave and things like that. But there's not a lot of time because people are anxious to just look at charts and find potential trades and do analyses. So I didn't do too much educational stuff today. But again, if you want to join the group, we have Flux University, which is chock full of educational content. Plus you get live streams with me where I'll teach you how to do everything but shave your balls. Thanks for stopping by. Catch you on the next one.